right, Dr. Bauer, I believe it is about 9:28 in the morning, Thursday, March 16th, and I see us here on Facebook Live, our Superintendent Live, breaking news, breaking down the numbers. So we wanted to go live this morning and answer some questions, a couple news articles, hit the news cycle or local news cycle, North Penn Now, et cetera, today after our presentation on Monday night concerning our high school renovation options. And the big part of that, big portion of that was our numbers and talking about financial impact to the community. So we said, hey, you know what? Let's just get in here. Let's talk to the community a little bit. We'll take some questions in the Facebook chat. So please do that on the bottom in the comment, throw some questions in there. And this morning, we had some questions come in. What do we want to talk about this morning, Dr. Bauer?
Yeah, great. You summarized that beautifully, Bob. But so there's an article out there that has some misinformation at no fault of anyone. I don't believe anyone's trying to mislead anybody. It was just an interpretation. And we had a sincere concern that the numbers would be misconstrued. And we know that we will need to educate the community, whether you're a parent of a student or a guardian or not. I think folks need to understand what we're saying, and out of full transparency, I want to take some time to have a conversation about it, and not just up at a school board meeting, not in an email, but like a back and forth conversation, answer questions. So you and I collectively have made this mechanism for communicating with our community after school board meetings, and we're getting like 1,000, 2,000 views each time, which is terrific. So I figured, you know what, this is a great way to get the correct information out there, engage maybe with some Q&A on Facebook Live, if there are questions or folks watching live.
Yep.
And hopefully we can help spread the word about what this is and is not. So
I think some of the big things we talk about when we look at numbers and my taxes, it can get really complicated when you're talking about school tax. We base our taxes on millages and all those kinds of things, which I think are difficult to understand. And at the end of the day, we all say, like, what's that mean? Like, what's that mean dollar amount? Just tell me how much it's going to cost, right? So I think one of the key elements that we see when we're talking about pieces, and if you want, Dr. Bauer, I can bring up one of these slides.
That would be great, Bob. Yeah.
Point at it. And we talk about the differences between when someone, like we're showing a number here, let me bring it up. You know, we're showing a number where we say assessed home value and applied market value, right? So when we say like, well, if your home is assessed at $150,000, this is what the costs are going to be. And I know, it took me a long time. I've been here in the school district doing things for a while. And I'm like, my house is worth way more than $150,000. What are you talking about? Which homes are we talking about? Right. Sure. In Montgomery County, in the North Penn School District. But keeping in mind, that's the assessed value. That's what the county assesses your home. Even though if it says 150,000, it might be worth 400,000. That's what the county taxes you on, is that 150,000. So right. There's those two things. So when we look at those numbers on these three slides here, this is what's assessed and being taxed for, even if your value is 758, right? So I don't know other questions you've had on that, but that's a big thing. People are like, no, come on, what are we talking about here? You're giving a low number when we're talking about your home value.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So a lot of folks, when they see the assessed home value, they're offended. If you look at your tax bill, and I know many of us don't, we just send it off to our mortgage company or whatever, and don't even look at it. But if you look at it, you'll see an assessed home value. And that is, when was the last time your county did an overall assessment? I don't know the year for Montgomery County. I know it was a long time.
I think it was the 90s.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
I'm pretty sure it was the 90s, like mid 90s. And I will tell you, because I was a new homeowner at the time, right? When I bought my home, and I was like, man, when people's homes are reassessed and that assessed home value went up, I'm like, that's good, right? That's a good thing. Isn't that a good thing? And everybody's losing their minds because now they're paying more taxes because their home was reassessed to be valued more, and it doesn't change unless the county does a reassessment.
Exactly.
So that was the thing where I'm like, I'm confused. Why are people mad? And that was me being brand new, young homeowner, not knowing. I'm like, oh no, I want a low assessed value.
Yes.
For tax purposes. Yeah, exactly.
And so there are two components to your real estate tax bill. There's your assessment and the millage rate. Right. And so based upon when the last time a school district or county, et cetera, was assessed, you will have a millage rate that kind of fluctuates depending on what the implied market values are. So it all works together, and you take your assessed value, multiply it by your millage rate, and that's your real estate tax bill. Okay. So when we see numbers here of $300,000 assessed home value, that home right now in the North Penn School District has an implied market value, meaning if you sold that house right now, it would be worth roughly $759,000. Okay. And for an assessed home value of $150,000, that home is worth right around $380,000 right now. And assessed home value of $100,000, that home is worth $253,000 roughly. Okay. So absolute difference. So I would like to move forward with the market value in these conversations, just because that number makes more sense to people, right? They know how much homes are worth. When they see the house next door for sale, they know what the market value is. They don't know the assessed value.
And I would say most people know the value of their home.
Yes, in general, right?
Where they fall in between these three implied, examples we give here, they'll fall somewhere in between these most likely, right?
Exactly. So from that, Bob, let's move down, and we're going to focus on that green column. I don't know if maybe you could zoom in a little bit
on it.
There we go. Slide it over just a tad. Perfect. So this is said to be the average real estate value of a home in our school district. Okay. $379,000. All right. So if we're looking at these two columns, scroll down a little bit, Bob.
Yeah, I'm going to see if it jumps a whole page.
Okay. We're good there.
Yeah, I'm going to, there we go.
So these two columns, estimated annual increase and estimated cumulative increase. Okay. These are projections. It's financial modeling by our financial advisors. It's not exact. They are estimated. Okay. So that left column, the annual increase, is the change in your real estate tax bill from one year to the next. So in that first year, which is 25-26, is when we would start borrowing for the projects, right? You have a $61 increase as a result of the project. The next year, it is estimated that it would be $22 increase, then $3, then $99, then $65, and so forth. Yep. Scroll a little bit left just to show that there's like a jump there.
Yeah, it goes like a couple of years.
See, it says through 2049.
Yep.
So in this case, debt, when you borrow this huge chunk of money, debt starts to come off of your budget. So the impact to the taxpayer is less. And if we approved a referendum, when those monies that were a part of the electoral debt, or the part that was approved, if approved, that money comes off the books altogether. And now all of a sudden we're starting to see a dip in your real estate tax bill. So that's why those numbers are in parentheses. Your tax bill is actually going down. Okay. Now I want to highlight, as we did on Monday night, that we are not saying that this is the total increase to your tax bill, right? Typically, real estate taxes go up each year because the cost of doing business goes up each year. It's called inflation, right? So our employees' salaries, the cost of healthcare, the cost of running our buildings, the cost of upkeep of our buildings, the cost of gas, the propane, all these things, that all goes up. So our real estate taxes go up. Okay. So this is the amount of money that we're talking about here that would impact your tax bill as a result of this project. Okay. So it does not encompass the entirety of the change in your tax bill. And I want to be perfectly clear and transparent about that. The cost of this project to this homeowner is going up $61, then $22, then $3. Then if we move to that right-hand column there, that is the cumulative increase. So meaning since 24-25, how much has my bill gone up total, right? So that first year it's up $61. The next year it goes up $22 more, which means it's up $83 since 24-25. And then it goes up $3, so it's up a total of $86. Just to kind of show you from a cumulative perspective or total, Shout out to Ms. Liberoski. She said, use total instead of cumulative. So cumulative is how much has it grown over the entirety of this borrowing. Okay. So now let's go down to the bottom. And this is really where, to use the phrase, the meat and potatoes are in the conversation. Can you scroll down a little bit more, Bob?
Yeah.
We can't see the bottom line.
It might jump. I'm going to check. There we go.
Perfect. So this is what this says. These two numbers or three numbers. It says that your current real estate tax bill is $4,271. It's saying your tax bill, the maximum tax bill, not the tax bill at the end of this, the maximum tax bill prior to those numbers going down at one point.
We reach the peak of the taxes due to debt and then come back down. Yep. Go ahead.
Exactly. So your maximum bill would be $4,564. That difference there, let me do some quick math, would be $93. $293. Okay. That would be the difference. And the total cost, if you add up each year, the difference as a result of this debt would be $7,165 that you were paying over the course of 32 years. Yep. At the increments that you see above, $61, $22, $3, et cetera, by year. This is not per month. This is by year. So there is an article out there that says your tax bill will increase $7,165. That is incorrect. That is inaccurate. I would be irate too if my tax bill increased $7,000, right? On a tax bill, by the way, that we're showing here that is currently at $4,000. If it goes up $7,000, right, that is inaccurate. So that's one of the big reasons you and I jumped on here, Bob, is like, clear that up, make it perfectly clear that it is not increasing $7,000. That is the cumulative cost or total over the course of 32 years. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go to option 2. So this was option 1, I believe.
Yeah,
and this was.
Let me see which page it's on. Let me unshare for a hot second.
Yep.
Because I have 150 slides here.
Yeah. So as you're working through it, I'll kind of explain. That was option 1. And option 1, for those who haven't watched Monday night's meeting, is moving 9th grade to the high school campus and then totally renovating the 10 through 12 building that currently exists, top to bottom, and reimagining some of the spaces, creating a more 21st century high school, creating more transparency, wide open, light, ventilation, collaborative spaces, flexibility with furniture and spaces themselves. That was how option 1 was presented on Monday night. Option 2, which is on your screen now, would be what we're calling like a basic renovation. Okay, just taking our current building and refurbishing it. So same structure, same classroom, same everything, just new floors, new ceiling, new paint, new lighting, new systems. Okay, but not changing the spaces themselves. So essentially, imagine if you want to change the floor plan of your house, right? You buy a fixer-upper and you want to change the floor plan. You take it down to the studs and you totally change where the rooms are, where the bathrooms are, remodel a kitchen, all that. That's option 1, and an addition to your house. Option 2 is taking room by room and just painting it, putting in new floors and new lights. If that, to oversimplify the conversation. All right. So here in option 2, you are seeing a total value or total increase as a result of this debt of $2,015 for that homeowner. That we're sticking with the market value of roughly $380,000. So over 30 years, that would be the cost. $2,015 paid out over 30 years. Okay.
Yep.
So the tax increases obviously are a lot smaller because the end figure is smaller. So you're seeing an $8 increase, a $64 increase, and it looks like it kind of settles in there.
It stays there for the next 15, 20 years there, right?
Exactly.
So same time frame as the other example. And again, that's your peak of let's make sure we have heat, right? Let's make sure we have lights, make sure those systems function. And like you said, we're freshening coat paint. Like it's paint, lights, heat. I don't want to get too basic on it, but it makes sure the building as it's functioning today can function tomorrow, right?
Yep. And it needs that. So one of the messages we've been driving home is one of these two options are the recommendation of the administration, right? The school board will vote on whether or not to move forward, but we are recommending this high school needs to be renovated. We've started giving tours to some folks. I gave a tour to 2 parents yesterday, and we went behind the scenes. We opened up, some of the utility closets, looked at some of the systems, the buckets on the ground collecting water, the things that are stuck together with paper clips and rubber bands. It has to happen. It has not been touched in over 50 years. And they say that most of these systems have a 30-year lifespan. So it must happen. So let's go down, Bob, to the slide where we see the difference.
Yeah, let me find that one.
And please, if you're watching, I don't know how many viewers we have. We don't typically have a ton live. So I assume the questions will come in after. But if you're watching, please feel free to put questions in the chat. I did see that. Shout out to Mrs. Diffley.
She's in there. She's got a bunch. Yeah. That's great.
Supporter of the school district. I cannot imagine a more important investment than in the education of the children of our community. Thank you, Mrs. Diffley. Totally agree.
I think it's what we're looking for here. This one, right?
This is the one.
Okay.
And also, I want to encourage folks. I sent out an email on Tuesday, after the meeting. And we're encouraging folks to submit questions. There's a link in there, and we're going to put up on the website like an FAQ, commonly asked questions, in advance of our April 13th forum where we can do a Q&A with the community. Okay, so this is the point during Monday night's presentation, Bob, where I said, look, if you're snoozing, if our chief financial officer, our architect, and our financial advisors put you to sleep. No offense to those folks. They're all great people and they did a great job, but I can see over the hour and a half of the presentation, people tuning out. This is the slide you want to look at. This is where it all happens. If you understand the difference between option 1 and option 2, okay, this is where you really need to take a look at what's it going to cost me. And so down there in that red box, you are seeing that the difference between option 1 and option 2 for that same $380,000 home, for that taxpayer over 30 years, the difference of these two options is $5,000, $5,150, which comes out to an estimated annual difference of $161. And some people may take into consideration, well, yeah, but my tax bill is going up more than that. We are saying we're doing one of the two. It's either option 1 or option 2. Yep. So if we are doing option 2, no matter what, then is it worth $161 a year to you? I am not going to pass that value judgment. Yep. That is up to you, your family, your situation, and et cetera. It is our job to educate the community. But is it worth $161 a year for us to move 9th grade up to the high school and to totally renovate the building into a 21st century high school, as opposed to a 1971 high school? That's the question, right? And so we did speak a lot to a referendum, which means we will need voters to come out and say yes or no. Yes would be in favor of option 1 and that additional debt and the borrowing and the implied tax increase. No would be no. I want you to go with option 2. And so over the next 6 months or so, we will be out and about and talking about this ad nauseum, right? People will be sick of hearing from me about this. But that's the question. That's the impact. It is not a tax increase of $7,000 or $14,000 to your bill. It is more that number you see right here on this slide, average increase of $161 a year.
And that's where I want to be clear when people are looking at this, because just these columns, again, we're looking at the assessed and then the applied market value. So the example we've been using is that kind of mid-range 379 market value of your home. The difference between 2 and 1 is $161
a year.
A year, yes, not over 32 years. But
right.
That's what, the estimated average over that 32 years would be $161 per year. And again, it ramps up. It doesn't start at 161. It ramps up levels out, ramps a little bit and levels, and then goes down.
Actually goes
That's
down.
the average over 32 years.
That is 100% correct.
Okay.
So are there any questions in the Facebook live chat?
Yeah, we got one. And then I think we're going to answer this again and just be very clear about it. Will option 1 increase taxes or just option 2? So we'll go back to option 1 is, we're going to fix the problems with North Penn High School as it stands right now. So option 1, will it increase taxes?
Yes.
Option 2 also increases taxes.
Yes.
And that's the reimagined, when we're looking at the spaces, bringing 9th grade here and reimagining what North Penn High School will be. There's the 2.
Bob, if I may, because this slide has it all, right? So I highlighted that red box, but let's go up to option 1.
Yep.
Right. And they're saying
the other slide or up here.
No, this is perfect.
Okay. Good.
So it's saying that home, if we're staying in the middle column, that home's real estate tax bill right now is about $4,271. The maximum annual rate is $4,564 for that home for this borrowing. Cumulatively or total over the course of the 32 years that are in this financial model is $7,000 to that homeowner. That's for option 1.
Yep.
Those exact same explanations can be applied down here where Bob is highlighting for option 2. And that taxpayer impact is $2,015 over 32 years. Okay, so that question, are taxes going up in both? Yes. The difference between the two is a grand total of $5,150 or $161 a year difference between these two options.
Excellent.
Great question.
All right, let's look here. That was Michael Etna. So thank you, Michael, for dropping that question in there. We appreciate it. Just scrolling up. Here we go, towards the top here. If the district goes with option 2, will there still be plans, funds to address the middle schools and the needs to update? Thinking about the big question always at the middle schools is air conditioning. So if we go with option 2, what will there be plans and funds to do air conditioning, et cetera, and to be able to take care of the needs that are at our middle schools?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. And I'm going to kind of allude to a different question that will provide the same answer.
Sure.
So great question. Who submitted that question, Bob?
That was from Sarah. So appreciate it, Sarah.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. So here's the deal. We received in that form for frequently asked questions, why, if option 1 and option 2, if the renovation part to the existing building is dramatically different, because it is, right? Option 1, we're saying totally changing the building into a 21st century building. Option 2, we're saying, is the basic renovation. Why is the 9th grade part the only part that's included in the referendum? Okay.
Yep.
And the reason for that is if we add the 9th grade to the high school, while that project is estimated to be at about 160 million more, we then have some flexibility with what we do at the middle schools, because you've moved 9th grade out of those middle schools. And we could potentially move forward with 2 middle schools as opposed to 3. If we do option 2, then we have not moved 9th grade out, and we would still need to keep all 3 middle schools. And then all 3 middle schools will need to be renovated. Obviously, renovating 3 middle schools is a lot more expensive than renovating 2. So, but we have to keep in mind, we're not making all of these decisions at once. I hate to say this, Bob, and I don't want to age you, but you probably won't be working here, when we discuss or we finalize what we're doing at the elementary schools and how we're renovating all those middle schools. That's a conversation 7, 8 years down the line. We could start designing and planning sooner than that, but that's when those conversations will truly come to fruition. So my answer to Sarah's question, and again, great question, is option 1 would offer us the flexibility to maybe move forward with 2 middle schools. We are not making that decision right now. Option 2 would really not. Okay, we would have to keep all 3 and renovate all 3. But in both options, I completely recognize that modular construction has got to go. All 3 middle schools or 2 middle schools need air conditioning. Pembroke and Penfield, by the way, were renovated in the early 2000s, I believe.
Correct.
Right. So they were renovated. They're nice buildings. They don't have air conditioning. And they have modular construction. And we need to get that modular construction out of there, make it permanent construction, add air conditioning, and freshen those buildings up at that point. So great question, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's what's toughest. And when I talk to folks about what's going on here too, it's like we have to decide what's happening here, because that informs everything else. You know, if we decide to just let's renovate all 3 middle schools while we're figuring out the high school, and then we move 9th grade here, like financially, none of it makes sense to do it. And I know we've been waiting, but we really, that's the reason why right now it's so important to talk about, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to reimagine North Penn High School? Are we going to keep it the same? Are we reimagining it? All of those decisions affect everything else. And you can't start the other way. You can't start at at kindergarten and say like, well, based upon kindergarten, you know, we're going to renovate all those buildings first, and we wait for this high school for another 25, 30 years to figure out what we're doing. And that's the tough part, is all of it's, none of it's not, I shouldn't say this. All of those questions about the middle schools are not being like, well, whatever. They're not pushed to the side. It just, they cannot be decided until we decide this component. Is that accurate?
You said that beautifully. And you know, another question you and I and everyone else often are asked, is why can't you just do air conditioning first? Right? Well, everyone acknowledges we have this modular construction in these buildings that need to be renovated. You're not going to spend 60, 70, 80 million dollars to put air conditioning in these 3 middle schools if you're intending to renovate them.
Yeah, and then you have to scrap it and do it all over again. Yep.
And it's not as simple as like putting a window unit in your family room, right? Like this is totally revamping the electrical systems, totally changing what's behind the walls, and like adding air conditioning to a middle school that has 1,200 students in it is going to cost us $20 or $30 million per school.
Yep.
So it's just important that, like, I recognize that it is uncomfortable on some days when we have when it's 90 degrees, it is hot, especially on the 2nd, 3rd floor of Penndale,
sure,
or up on the highest floors of Brook and Field. It's hot. Hopefully we can offer some flexibility in the future of, hey, maybe you can learn virtually if it's that hot. But we need to make this decision so that we can do the middle schools properly.
Yeah.
Great question.
So, Michael, we just want to, again, the whole point of doing this is try to be clear about what we're talking about of what we're estimating as the potential increases based upon option 1 versus option 2. So I'm going to bring up our slide on option 1 again. And then we talked through a lot of it the first time, like in length, but if we can do like brass tacks here and go where, and just go for option 1, tax increases of what's estimated. This is going to referendum, and this is the increase that is estimated based on what the debt service for this project is going to cost, not the overall next 32 years of everything else. It's just based upon this renovation and doing a 9th grade center here and renovating this building with option 1 of what our overall tax increase is going to be, of what we expect. If we can look at again, we'll use this 379 value of your home assessed at 150, but value here, what we're looking at. So Michael, if you're looking at this column, Dr. Bauer, if you can give us the rundown on that one again.
I can. All right. So Michael, I'm going to assume that you are in this green column just because it represents average. Okay. So if this slide says that if your tax bill is currently $4,271, which is down at the bottom, okay, it will at its peak go up $293 from today at its peak. And there will be a time where that number starts to fall as debt comes out of our budget as a result. Okay.
So again, on option 1, we ramp up starting in 25, 26, $61. And this is the add, and this is the cumulative, right?
Yep.
So the peak when we hit this 2031, 32 is 293 annually. And then it starts coming down. So then if we'll get down to option 2. That's that slide, right?
Right. So this tax bill increases $72 from now until its peak. And it kind of sits there. And again, I have to be clear. I could brush over this. I don't want to. This is not your total tax bill. This is the change in your tax bill as a result of this project. Okay. So just to be clear, there are other things that are budgeted for in a school district than renovations.
Just like every other year, like,
yep.
The tax increase for increased fuel costs or energy, everything that goes into every year on a tax increase. This is outside of that. That is the outside. And we're saying that this is the cost due to this project that we'd increase taxes by. Now, I don't know if we want to get into the weeds on this, but option 2 is not a referendum.
Yep.
So that would be built in or baked in as part of the whatever tax increase would be that year. No,
that is correct. And it would not, you'll notice here that the number is not going down. Mm-hmm. Right. In the other previous model for option 1, it's going down. That's because of the electoral debt or the referendum. Yep. That comes out after 10 years or so. And now all of a sudden it recalibrates back to normal. It's not including the electoral debt. So this one goes up $72 and kind of sits there for the next 30 years. There will still be tax increases for other things, but this is for this debt. So great question, Michael. I hope that helped. If not, shoot me an email. We can schedule a call. I'd be happy to talk with you.
And as we continue to talk about this, we got our community forum coming up on April, get the date right, 13th. Right? Yep. Over at Pembroke Middle School, where we're just talking about solely this, time for community questions, etc. I did throw in the chat our Reimagine website that has all these presentations and slide decks too, to get into it. But that's the key part, is just keep asking the questions so that we've got all the info out there. And that's why I think what started this today is that we talked about cumulatively over time, over 32 years, of what the cost to the homeowner would be. It seems like my taxes are going up $7,000. Like, no, they're not going up $7,000. It's always frightening because I know many of us, it's in our mortgage, it's in our escrow, and we don't necessarily always calculate out, but take your tax bill and calculate that out over 32 years. It's far more than $7,000 for 32 years of your school taxes.
Yeah. So here's an example that everyone can relate to, Bob. You buy a new car. That new car is, we'll say it's a truck, because I drive a pickup truck. Yep. We'll say that new car is $50,000, and you have a length of a term on your loan, and you have an interest rate. And what do you want to know as the buyer? How much am I going to pay a month?
Yep.
That's what you want to know. How much am I going to pay? You don't say how much am I paying over the life of 72 months or 60 months? It's usually, what's my monthly payment? Right. So when we're talking real estate taxes, it's typically, what's my annual payment? And that's Michael's question. It's essentially just asking, how much is my bill going to be? And in this case, the option 2 that you have up here, it will start at $4,271 and it will get to $4,342, which is a net change of $72.
And again, being clear, because of construction.
Right.
Because of construction. So if we go back to option 1, right? This is a difference for the option 1. And then I'm going to jump down to the comparison slide again. So you would go from 4,271 today and by the peak here, right?
And that peak appears to be right at the end of 2049, right? And then it starts dropping down because of that referendum. We're going down to 261, 206.
That debt's retired. Yep.
Right. Okay.
And so your bill is going up to 4,564
at its peak.
At its peak. And then it does start to come down based upon this debt for this project. And then let's see if I can find that overall comparison slide. Oh, that was it. There we go.
Okay. This is the mother of all slides for this conversation. Right. So your current tax bill is 4,271. Your estimated future ongoing tax bill would be 4,564.
Yep.
And the total of that increase over the 32 years is 7,165. If you add all of 30 numbers up,
yep,
that's going to be the number. Okay. So if we go all the way down, the difference between option 1 and option 2 is $5,150 total dollars over 32 years, or $161 a year. So I hope this is helpful. If anyone would put in the chat, like, yes, get it. Thank you. Makes sense. I hope this conversation, Bob, helped our community.
Yeah, I think so. And we've gotten a bunch of engagement here. We do have couple questions in here about like the particulars of where things are located and why don't we, there's a question about using the old radio station property and where things go. And we've said this all along, like we have to decide that we're doing, if we're bringing ninth grade center here, it changes the whole dynamic of how we arrange what the design is, because we have a concept, there's no design, right? And so from that standpoint of design, this is what we're trying to figure out and working through. So all of those decisions about if transportation, where it goes and those kinds of things all kind of happen if we make a decision to bring ninth grade here to the high school. If we push that forward, then we go to referendum for that, if the referendum passes. So there are many steps along the way, but just understanding the basics of why we're presenting what we're presenting and trying to be as transparent as possible with all the information we have. And there's a lot. It's a lot. Like some of these slides, I always, like there's one of these slides where I was like, this doesn't work for me. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what's happening right now. I think it's like Dig Dug. Yeah. I'm going to go old school 80s video game. There's a little bit of Dig Dug here. I'm not sure what's going on there. I've heard other people say that slide really helps me. So we've had this in so many different formats for you to try to digest that makes sense for you. And that's our goal today, to try to just kind of answer those questions, because we kind of saw some information that was not accurate about what that meant to each individual taxpayer. So,
Bob, can I try to explain this slide to you?
Sure. Let's see if I get it. Let's see.
All right, let's see if we can do it in a minute or two.
Got it.
Each color represented here is a borrowing. Okay, so we borrow money from whomever issues a bond to the school district, and each one represents a different borrowing. So if we start at this year, which is labeled as 6/30/23, that is our current debt that is in our budget.
And that debt, reminding everybody, is for things like Knapp Elementary School, Montgomery Elementary School, the construction projects that we've done with our school renovations over time. Yep. That stacks every time. We were doing a renovation pre-pandemic, like almost every 2 years, 2 to 3 years, we were doing a renovation of an elementary school. So this is the debt we've built up for those projects, and they get paid off over time. So that part I understand.
So you will see certain colors tend to get smaller over the life, okay? Because that amount of debt comes off the books eventually.
And it's in the budget. It's built into the budget right now, this amount for debt. And then as we pay it off, this is what's owed or what we're paying out, right? In the gray. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Right now.
Right now, our debt service looks like it's roughly $11 or $12 million in this graph.
Okay.
Right? That first column. Then we start borrowing. So that blue, I'm just going to guess, that blue with the speckles in it would be for transportation. So acquiring land and starting to build a new transportation center, right? So that's a borrowing.
Yep.
And that borrowing you can see throughout, if you kind of highlight the blue there and kind of walk horizontally, sorry. You can see that borrowing and when it totally comes off the books, which appears to me to be like 2049.
There we go. Yep.
Okay. And so each of these is a borrowing for a project. And at the peak, the estimate is that our budget for debt service would go from 11 million all the way up to 28. So we would be budgeting $28 million in essentially, if you're a homeowner, bills, right?
Yeah.
That's part of your budgeting. You're paying your debt service or the money that you borrowed. And I'll carry that analogy forward for your home. It's not only your mortgage, but you took out a home equity loan, right? And so you put in a patio or a porch or something like that. So you wrapped it all together and now your monthly payment increases. That's what this chart is saying. So each color is a borrowing, a lump of money. We usually borrow bonds in like the $20 million range, and we usually pay them off in 20 to 25 years. So that's what you're seeing here. I hope that helped. But anyway.
It does. It does. There's a lot of colors here.
There are a lot of colors. So there was also the question, can you go up, Bob, to the slide where it says like concept? It's a map. This would be in the architect slides. Yep, you're almost there.
Let's set up this here.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
This one.
Yep. All right. So let me explain what we have here. just for the people watching. The red is an addition. Okay. And all that the architects have done here is scaled space. Meaning, if we added, say, 1,000 students to this campus and roughly 100 teachers to this campus, what will we need in terms of square footage, eating space, gym space, academic space, right? And parking and athletic fields. That's what you're seeing here. So the radio station property has athletic fields on it, as does what is currently transportation. It also has increased parking in the back. Okay, so right now, Bob, can you slide up to the current site? It's just a couple slides up, I think. Right, so if you look here, look at the parking. It's smaller in the back there.
Yeah, very small.
And you have the transportation depot. And highlighted in blue is the radio station property, which we are not currently utilizing. We own it, we don't utilize it right now. Okay, so we would have more handicap and ADA accessible parking closer to the stadium. We would have more fields because we have more kids and more clubs and activities and sports teams. And then we would also have the additional space. So if you could scroll down back to that. Perfect. So you see the word commons there. That would essentially be like the cafeteria. So a commons has to do with like your counseling, your administration, your library, your food, and it's no longer just a cafeteria used for eating. It's a common space that is utilized for a lot of things. So that's what he means by.
And in the core of where we have a lot of activities, whether it's the auditorium for theater shows, band concerts, giving you that extra space. And anybody that's done like night of jazz or any of those types of things, you know, like when we want to go eat or have snacks, you're running to the back of the building to be able to eat back there and then come back through the building to come back to the auditorium. So kind of with the commons and the cafeteria and all these elements up here keeps the public, I would say public venues pretty centralized, right? Mm-hmm. And then there is a question in here, you know, like, oh, you forgot about band and music. Well, if we're moving the cafeteria, I know this is part of the, again, this is not design, right? All of these areas do account for the needs of our STEM, our arts, our music, yes. All of those areas. So like the existing cafeteria, you know, if this becomes the cafeteria up here, that whole space in B pod and over there becomes a new space for us to reimagine, to be able to create studios and different pieces and all of that. Again, this is not a design. It's just a, like, where could things go? Is it even possible on this campus? And that's really what this map is showing. So yes. For sure, it includes all of the needs of all of the areas, because this is a pretty dynamic place. And that's why I said we're reimagining all of these spaces. So I think sometimes we think like everything that's going to be in the 1971 section stays exactly the same. That's not right. Reimagining it.
One of our department chairs said in a meeting at the high school the other day, so if the commons goes where JPod is, and JPod currently houses most of our art classes, where are the art classes going to go? To which Mr. Nicholson responded, where's anything going to go?
Yeah.
Right. Like we are totally reimagining how we utilize the space. So there is a little sliver. I'm going to try to describe this to you, Bob. Right there. Perfect. Thank you. There is that was good. There's a little sliver there that is connected to what is really FPod, but that's the band and the arts area. You will see that sliver on both renderings, option 1 or option 2. And that is simply that our music spaces and our art spaces are not ADA compliant, right? So we recognize it, even if we do option 2 and just do a basic renovation and essentially utilize the facility the way it's being utilized now, you jumping down to that.
That's the only red spot there if you look at it.
Yeah, keep going. There it is. Yep. See that red spot? So that red spot would be an addition to give more real estate so we can put, for example, ADA accessible ramps in to the chorus room, the band room, et cetera. So that little red spot is specifically for our music department. Okay, so great question. I see another question here, which I believe I answered at the top of the hour, but it's that important. I want to answer it again. The question is, oh, I lost it. Why is there not an option to upgrade the high school with 21st century learning and flexibility and open spaces and light and all these things without a 9th grade center? And the answer to that is we would need to go to a referendum to afford that. Right. And you can't go to referendum for both things. So what is the referendum paying for? We would need to go to a referendum for the 9th grade part, which would then in turn offer us flexibility to address the middle schools, financial flexibility. If we go with a 21st century option for 10 to 12, which is our understanding based upon our Hanover survey last year and our survey 3 or 4 years ago at this point, that this community and our parents and students are in favor of 9th grade coming to the high school. That it would be the cost and then the implied next steps with 3 middle schools as opposed to 2 wouldn't be affordable.
Yep.
So that's why it would have, if a referendum does fail, because we'd have to go to a referendum either way. If a referendum does fail, the only thing we would be able to afford would be the basic renovation and still be able to address the middle schools, excuse me.
Yeah. And I think
so that's a question that's going to.
Yeah. And you had said, like, that tough part when we're talking about the referendum, it really informs our ability to meet the needs that we have at the middle schools. And yes, it's interwoven in those pieces. But like you said, if we do a referendum for a 21st century just to high school and that fails, there is no room in our debt service to be able to do, I should say no, but difficulty in getting the needs we have at our middle schools. And that's more we'll talk about as we go and get closer to which option that we move forward with, and if we go to referendum of clearly putting those pieces out there. Mrs. Diffley says thanks for that, and she's been commissioned officially to plug for music and the arts. So
I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, I'm seeing if we have anything else that's going in here. There's some questions about the traffic, talking about the traffic. And, It's in the playlist of presentations. If you go to that website too, where we talk about the traffic study. I'm trying to remember which meeting it was in January. Is that when we did the traffic study?
It was.
To talk about that initial piece of what that looks like. Obviously, all of this is not it's not ignored. It is like we're well aware of the traffic impact to the area, how will we handle that, and the recommendations to improve upon the traffic if we bring 9th grade here. And I think all of us say, what are we gonna do to improve traffic in general? Because it's not great around North Penn High School.
Yeah, great question to whomever submitted that. So believe it or not, I sincerely believe, and I don't know if it would be helpful, Bob, if you pull that map up again.
Yeah. Sure.
Could you show the current campus? But I believe if we added 9th grade to the campus itself, the traffic would actually reduce a bit or be pretty much status quo. And I think to an average person who has not lived and breathed this high school or been the principal of the high school might not get that on the surface, but highlight the transportation center, Bob.
Right here.
Yeah. So all the buses that go across our district, it's roughly 70. And then that parking lot, the A-pod parking lot, Bob.
Yep.
All the people who park back there, aside from our communications department, meaning Bob and his friends, and our bus drivers park back there. So I don't know how many spots there are. I could get that number. But if you are a bus driver right now, you drive from your home to the North Penn High School campus in your car. You then get in your bus and you leave the campus. You go pick up your high school kids. You come back, drop them off. You leave in your bus. You go do your middle school, elementary school runs. Then you bring your bus back. Then you get in your car. Then you leave the campus again. And that's just the morning runs. So think about how many times you're coming in and out of that campus as a result of transportation being on this campus. If we move transportation off that property, that is significantly reducing the amount of traffic that is coming in and out of the campus all day long. So 9th graders don't drive. So we are not adding student drivers to the campus. We are adding parent drop-off and we are adding staff. So actually the projections from the traffic engineers are really no change. But we do believe there will be enhancements to the infrastructure necessary. They are proposing traffic light at Snyder and Valley Forge. I think a lot of people would agree with that. They are proposing widening the road on Valley Forge Road, coming in and out. So having a turning lane there, both ways. They're proposing that Town Pike get widened. All these are enhancements that I think would be great today, let alone in 2030.
Sure.
Right. We are in conversations with North Monco Technical Career Center about actually utilizing their driveway, perhaps for staff. Right. So if you could highlight their driveway there, Bob. So yeah, right there. So if our staff came in there and went around North Monco to park in what is proposed, a new parking lot back there.
Yep.
You're doing a great job. I'm really putting the heat in on. Go
trying
up.
to get to the
up, not down.
That's where I wanted to go for parking. Sorry. I was going to parking for
it's either. Yeah, it's option 1 or option 2.
Yeah.
But you would come in the North Monco drive, and then there is a little driveway to the stadium. Exactly, right there. That we could widen and our staff could get to a staff parking lot. So get all that traffic away from Valley Forge Road and Snyder Road for roughly 400 to 500 staff members. So there are definitely things that we can do to reduce the parking, widening roads, increasing turning lanes, traffic signals. I'm not an advocate for a traffic circle for high school drivers, but the engineers who do this for a living, I do not, traffic studies, are saying that it is very manageable traffic-wise. So.
Yeah, and I just, a couple of questions here, and it's just making me realize, so we have our school board meetings and our work sessions where we talked about the traffic study. And I will say this, I'm going to go back and label those on YouTube specifically, that it says that work session on traffic study, even though we talk about some other things. And also there was an enrollment piece. Somebody asked a question about enrollment and tracking and where are we at with the number of kids we've got. So we had a whole enrollment study we presented also. I want to say that was in 2023, right? January, or
it was.
I can look at the actual date. So if it's helpful to our community, and I think it will be, I'm just going to kind of relabel those because it's easy for me, like, oh, that was the work session in January and I know those dates, but making sure they're labeled properly so you can find them a little bit more easier to go through those pieces. And I think part of, the traffic piece is huge. I mean, we got a lot of cars, a lot of people, and it's tough now. And you think about, our high school wasn't built for like massive parent drop-offs. That's a last 10, 20 year thing,
It is.
My parents weren't dropping me off at school when I rode the bus. I had to ride the bus, and a lot more bus ridership back in the day. So when we think about when the building was designed and thought about in 1968, opened in 1971, we weren't thinking about a ton of parent drop off. And, the building's not really built and our parking lot's not built for that. And that's one of the things I think is most frustrating. If you're dropping off your kid in the morning on their way to work, it's like, oh, not only am I waiting traffic to get in, then I got to navigate the maze we've made to make that work and get you out again, all on the same driveway. So for sure, when we're reimagining things, it's reimagining how this facility is used in a way that's more effective for everybody. Well, Dr. Bauer, we've been talking for a little while here. It's probably almost an hour.
We have. Can I address one more question real quick?
Absolutely.
Actually, there's two.
All right.
The one.
Should I get rid of this slide?
Sure.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I think both of these can be addressed without maps. So, got it. All right. So the first question was from Mrs. Blystone. Good morning, Mrs. Blystone. Great to hear from you. And the question was, have we taken into account the need to hire 75 more teachers for a 9th grade center? So that is inaccurate. Keep in mind, it is the same number of students just going to a different school, right? So that means we have the teachers. Actually, when you bring together your resources, it's more efficient. So if you have all your 9th graders in one school instead of 3 schools, based upon class sizes and scheduling impacts, it actually reduces the number of staff that you would need. That is not our intention, right? This would, in effect, if you have the same number of teachers and you are being more efficient with your resources, maybe we could draw class size down a bit, right? Because everybody's in the same place. Instead of having like odd number, strange sections. So sometimes when you do a master schedule, and I'm getting super geeky here, but when you do a master schedule, your average class size might be 27 in an Algebra 2 class, right? But you might have some ugly sections that are like 13 just because of what the kids are taking for their courses. So now this would allow us to streamline and have more options across the board. And then in turn, you don't have those ugly numbers and you need fewer sections, or you can spread them out more evenly and have lower class sizes. So that's geeky. I know. I would love to talk scheduling with anybody at any time. Then the last question we'll hit here, and for others, please submit online on the FAQ form that we sent out Tuesday afternoon, was, with the high school being so large, has there been any thought to have 2 high schools? And honestly, to be totally honest and transparent, I would say that the die is cast on that concept in North Penn, meaning it was considered years ago. The property was owned years ago, like in the 90s. And the decision was made to move forward by adding K-Pod and to sell that property. And so, and honestly, it would be cost prohibitive. The cost of acquiring a property that large for not only a school, but for the parking and for all the athletic fields and facilities necessary, and then building and renovating the current structure, it's just not possible.
Yep.
The cost of renovating the current structure at a minimum, as we are showing in option 2, is somewhere around $240 million. Then throw on top of that the estimated cost of building a brand new high school and acquiring the property for that. Just can't happen. And I'm not sure that property exists.
Well, that's why I said we got to find that spot, because I'm not sure where it is. There's something that large anymore. It's always amazing to me, though, that there's still so much land. I'm surprised when I start to see development. Sometimes you think you see it, and this is a large property now, and figuring out where this one might be if we ever did that. Yeah, this is why I said this is. It's always interesting. I give my quick little history lesson. So North Penn High School opened in 1971. The plan was, I believe, by 1974 that we were going to open a second high school next to what would become the Montgomery Mall and the Knapp farm, the Knapp property, which is now houses. And due to enrollment, we decided we weren't going to do that. And then we had the mid-90s property out in Montgomery Township on Keenest Road. We were going to build a second high school. Due to feedback and other things, we chose not to do that. And we added to this building and added K-Pod there that opened up in 1999. And this would be I guess the third time we talked about trying to add 9th grade to the high school, right? The first time was, and when we were going to do those 2 high schools in the 70s, it was going to be 2 9 through 12 buildings. And that's how they were going to make it happen. So
what was the name going to be? Was it going to be North Penn and South Penn? Do you know?
You know what? I'm trying to remember in the 90s. I thought it was like North Penn South, North Penn North, something weird. I don't think we were East and West. I'd have to go back and try to find the old board meetings to see what that actually was called, and maybe if somebody remembers what we were going to call it. But it was weird because we're North Penn, but then we add another direction on the end. So it's North Penn, another direction. It was kind of South by Southwest. I don't know.
All right, Bob.
So anyway, I appreciate the time this morning. This has been fun. I hope this was helpful to people. And I know lots of people will see this tonight when they get home from work or kind of review it. So certainly throw the questions in there. I linked into the Google chat the FAQ, also the website where it has the other information to go through, and hopefully this is helpful. And we just encourage you to continue to ask the questions. And we've got our community forum April 13th at Pembroke Middle School at 6 p.m. So we're going to go through all the materials and updates that we have at that time and get community input there. It's important that we hear from you. It's important we have engagement. This is a big deal. There's a lot of big decisions to be made, and we need to hear from everybody and what their thoughts on. And frankly, some of the best ideas always come from things that, like, we didn't think about that component, bring it into the conversation. And we just hope in the community that, we know we're here to have an honest, engaging conversation with everybody so we can figure out what we're going to do next here at North Penn.
Yeah, I have been so impressed by the feedback so far. Like, it is respectful, civil discourse about like, hey, what about this? Or I don't think, but it has been very productive. And, North Penn always finds a way to impress. And I've been really, really impressed by the engagement and the level of just communication and discussion. It's important. This is a huge decision for the school district. And I'm excited that it's going to a referendum because, as Mr. Scrocky says, it is the truest form of a democracy. Like, what do you want? Do we want 9th grade at the high school? Okay. This is how much it's going to cost. Do we not? Okay. This is what you'll get. I think that's important, and be respectful of and let the voters make the decision. I think it's great. And it's a great thing for the school district, whether you have children or not, for your high school to be a outstanding state-of-the-art facility. It's important, and it's time. So I'm excited about it, Bob.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's Thursday morning, 10:28 a.m. We did about an hour there. So hopefully this is helpful. You guys can scrub through later and get a piece if you want. Again, the websites are linked in there. We ask you to check those out. I think that's it. Dr. Bauer, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Our community that engaged with us this morning, thank you so much for the questions. Really appreciate it. And I think that's it for now. So I'm going to hit the old end button. We'll do the wave.
See you, Bob. Thank you.
All right, take care.